Hello, my name is Kevin Miles, and I'm a wellness educator. Today, I'm here to tell you the story about Sister Rosalind. Sister Rosalind was, as you can tell by her name, a nun, and she just passed away this last week. And you might wonder, why is a wellness educator bringing up the story about a nun? Well, I'll tell you. So, Sister Rosalind is the person who we can thank for the phrasing that we have in our society as massage therapy and massage therapists. Before her influence, we called it massage and massage parlors and masseuses. And I'll tell you a bit about her. So she grew up south of the Twin Cities in an area where language was not all English. She spoke mostly German, as far as I'm understanding it. She even had an accent when I met her in her early 90s, late 80s, somewhere in there. And her experience growing up, as she told me, was that she hated doing the farm's kitchen work and doing all the things that it took to keep the house going. So when she decided to join her convent, she hated that they put her right into the kitchen, right where she didn't want to be. And as her story unfolds, as she goes through this process of entering into that society, she was put in a hospital, serving in a cafeteria, serving patients of that hospital. And as we would see it today, we would say she must have had a panic attack because she fainted, and a doctor held her for observation and decided to hold her overnight because she didn't have anything to say about how or why that happened. And it was just a different time. And so they took particular care of the people around them, I guess. And so the next day he came to her and asked her, what happened? Why did you faint? And she eventually told him, I hate my job. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? And so she said, well, I'd like to be a nurse. And he goes, well, that's possible. We can make that happen. Why don't we get you signed up for classes and get you some tests and get you on your way to being a nurse? So, skipping all the details, she did become a nurse. She became aware of how to care for the human body. And sometime after that, her mom fell ill, and she was told that she had about 2 to 3 months yet to live. And so it was time for her to go and be with her mom and take care of her as well as she could while she was in this process of passing away. And she said that in that process, it actually, because of her care as a nurse, her mom lived for 3 years. And so in that 3-year relationship extension, if you will, her mom asked her to bring her to a massage therapist or a masseuse down the road. And this masseuse was a blind guy who would every time they came in together, he would ask, hey, Sister Rosalind, would you like to get on my table and get a massage? And most times she said no. But after, this exchange went on for enough times, she finally, assented and said, okay, sure, I'll get work done. So he worked on her, and for the first time in, she said, 8 years, she didn't have this chest pain and stomach problem where she had to sleep sitting in a recliner, sitting up instead of laying down. And I have theories as to what that might have been because we know more things now. But she discovered that massage was healing. And so she was very interested in it. And as she went to see him, her mom would get worked on, and she became interested in massage itself. So he started teaching classes, and as he named his price for how much he was going to charge for the class, she said, I don't have that money. I can't take your class. And he said, well, I see how you're taking care of your mom. Don't worry about the money. I'll teach you. And so she learned massage therapy from him. I wish I had his name, honestly. So after learning how to do massage therapy with him in this time with her mom does finally pass away, and she returns to the convent where she comes from, and she started working on her friends and her cohort colleagues, I don't know what you call them, but started working on them and started working out of the YMCA doing massages. I think she said she was charging $5 an hour, which at that time apparently was a great sum of money for an hourly rate. So that gives you a bit of sign of the times. So as she went forward in time, she decided she wanted to branch out and open her own office somewhere in St. Paul, as well as I can understand, because she went to the St. Paul office and got a permit to own a business. And when they asked what kind of business is it, oh, massage, and they go, oh, okay, well, let's get your mugshot. And she was like, excuse me, mugshot? And they're like, well, yeah, we kind of expect this to become prostitution at some point. And she goes, do you see what I'm wearing? I'm a nun. I lay my hands on people and see them well, just like Jesus did. And they're like, in your case, we'll make an exception. So she went without the mugshot and opened her office. And as she had people coming in for an hour and leaving, coming in for an hour and leaving, coming in for an hour and leaving, one of her neighbors reported her, and I think it was only 2 weeks after opening, she got shut down under the premise of doing prostitution. So reasonably, she was devastated. And her remarks about this to me were that she went to her friends who were her community, and they held space for her to grieve and to hold the pain of what she was experiencing. And after she had processed it well enough that she could come up to it instead of being crushed by it, she decided that it wasn't okay how she was treated ultimately, and that something should be said and something should be done about this injustice. So she went to those same officials where she got her business license and talked to them and said, hey, I'm a nurse and I do a lot of things to take care of the human body that are therapeutic. And now that I know what massage is and the way that I do it, how I make sure that I'm not moving blood clots around or working on somebody who's recently injured in a way that would hurt them worse, it's important to know these things and how effective this work is, massage. It's a therapy. So we might want to put some words in the legal language that call it, I don't know, something like massage therapy. So she worked with them and actually got it in writing and put into action. So she upped the ante as to what people had to know about the human body so you wouldn't cause harm by working on them. One story she told me was that there was a man who had recently been in a car accident, and he asked for a massage, and she said, no, I'm not going to work on you because that could cause you harm. You need to go to a doctor first, and after a set amount of period of time, usually at least 3 days, then we can work on you. And only lightly then, but even after that, there's some considerations to take. Well, he ignored her, even as she said, don't go to anybody else and get worked on. You need medical care, not just massage. He ignored her, and within another day or so, he had died. And that was a story she told me herself. So, very fascinating. I can go into more detail about what all she related to me, but I'm trying to pare this down for people who have never heard this story and might want to know the meat of the picture that is in her life. So Sister Rosalind then after getting this reinstated position where she becomes a massage therapist, technically maybe the very first massage therapist there ever was. And to be clear, how she came through this was not without notoriety of some sort, because international headlines read, "Nun has touching habit," which is a cruel joke because the name of the frock that they wear is called a habit. Or I think you figure it out. So anyway, Sister Rosalind starts working on people, even at the Saints game, the baseball team in St. Paul. And she starts just working on people and praying with them and doing what she did best. And eventually started teaching people the massage that she knew was good to do. And as she taught people and found other people who wanted to do massage as a therapy, she opened several clinics over time. And she wasn't a business person. She wasn't somebody who was in it to like make $1 million here or there. She eventually had somebody join her group who was a business person and said, well, hey, let's like look at the books. Let's see what we can do about streamlining some of this and making it all kind of uniform. And what they found was that she didn't have like safes where money was being held. What it was just a file cabinet with all the files where client notes would go. And in with the client notes was just straight up cash from all of the sessions. And so they only took money out randomly out of whatever envelope was necessary to pay rent and pay the people who were doing the work. And that's pretty much it. So you can tell by that detail how innocently and how brightly she was showing up to just do the work. And it's something I greatly admire about her. And I hope that people can take a thread from. And so in her story, she opened, I think, 26 clinics and at least 3 massage schools. I've read elsewhere that it was 6. As I was talking to one of her older business partners, which is partly how I got to come and meet her, was one of my friends was going to St. Thomas and was part of a business class, and she was in the business study and all these things. So I got to go with my friend to meet Sister Rosalind, where she laid her hand on my head and prayed for me, and I felt things shifting as if I was getting cranial massage. It was awesome, and I'm still curious about what was happening in that moment. But so Sister Rosalind had these schools opened, and apparently they weren't federally accredited, which I don't know what steps were skipped or they couldn't accomplish, because obviously she knew her stuff. But somehow these schools weren't able to take federal funding for like student loans. And so they went bankrupt because they were saying, hey, we've got students who have a tuition. This is how much tuition is. And the students, because they didn't have student loans, were paying out of pocket. And some tried to pay and couldn't pay the rest. And they said, okay. So it was an on your honor system. And unfortunately, that did the whole system in. And they went bankrupt. I don't know if it's because of how they had to report that they were getting this much but didn't have that much, and whatever happened. Essentially, business wasn't the focus. And so the business started to dissolve. And I think they downsized to about 6 clinics, which I think are still all in running now, 6 or 9 clinics. And so I met Sister Rosalind while she was at her senior living home by St. Kate's, and had some brilliant chats with her. And she told me all about how her eyesight was so poor, but that gave her insight as to how to care for other people who had poor eyesight. And so she was working on getting resources to people who had poor eyesight. So you can see just from the many pictures of her life that she was just trying to help wherever she was. And she was a true sweetheart, even to the day I met her. So, yeah, Sister Rosalind came onto the scene, highly underestimated. They thought she was stupid because of her accent, and that, because she was born here in Minnesota, how can you speak with an accent if you're, native born? But that was some of the discrimination that she came under and lived through to tell her story, and survive past the adversity of being misunderstood and still holding true to what she believed was necessary to carry forth in the world, and that was care for each individual on a intimate and caring level. And she talked a lot about skin hunger, which is something that goes very unapproached in our world. She said that skin hunger is something that we all have, that it shouldn't be ignored, and it's just as important as eating food. And getting touch is just a part of our needs as humans. And if you need to go to someone who does body work, who can hold you, that's not an evil thing. It's a safe space. It's a healing space where that touch can be maybe reversing some negative touch that you've experienced in the past. So, yeah, Sister Rosalind is a bit of a hero and a legend in my circles. And as my predecessor's predecessor, she was a great grandmother to my process that I hold in my hands now. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to represent that here in the state where massage therapy was born. Thank you for this Kev Talk. See you next time.